Kia ora koutou katoa. Welcome to Windsor Park Online. My name is Grant Harris and I'll be leading you through our online service today. It's my privilege to be hosting you, and our online host will be interacting with you as well. So no matter where you are joining us from, we hope that you are feeling ready to both worship and be challenged. Today is really a day about stories. We're going to hear a whole bunch of different stories and two different really significant contexts for us. I guess here at Windsor Park, we really believe in seeing what God does in and through us and telling those stories and sharing them. So that's what today is about. And we're going to start today by hearing the story of a program that has been started and birthed within Windsor Park a couple of years ago by Emily Duncan. And Emily has a powerful story of the way in which God has transformed her life. Very significant ways, from addiction and trauma to being a follower of Jesus, through wanting to help people out with addiction and trauma. A couple of years ago, Emily birthed a program called Stand. She's been developing a program to help people in our local communities here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, see Jesus in the midst of their healing journeys. And Stand has been operating for about the last 9 months, and I interviewed Emily just the other day about something that's really significant that's going to be happening here at Windsor Park on our campus, and hopefully we'll live stream it on the 19th of May. So this is a good solid interview, gives a little bit of context of Stand and what it's about, but we celebrate the story and we celebrate where it's going. So let's review the interview that I had with Emily a couple of days ago. Kia ora everybody, I'm here with Emily Duncan, who won't be unfamiliar to a lot of you, but for some of you who don't know Emily, Emily's been developing and pioneering a program called Stand, which is an addiction and trauma recovery program, really grounded in Christ. And it's been an exciting journey to see it started and see you grow and develop. But the real exciting part has been over the last 9 months or so, Emily. Tell us a little bit about how it's been working itself out.
Yeah. So we're coming to the end of 9 months of really intensive discipleship program. And so the residents, there've been 30 of them, men and women, mostly in leadership positions, and they have done probably 8 modules of AOD and understanding addiction. And then they've done 32 group therapy sessions with cognitive behavioural therapy, motivational enhancement therapy, and emotions-focused therapy. And they've done all these classes, which are based on the 12 steps. And they have gone through their entire life and through all the childhood adversity they've experienced, all the trauma they've experienced, and they've found Jesus in amongst all of it. And they have gone on this journey together. So it's a very therapeutic community vibe. And they've gone through it together. They've learnt how to confront and love. They've learnt how to pray for each other. They've learnt how to be there for each other whilst everyone heals together as a group. And so amazing stuff that they have done. These are people that have come from, they're coming out of the gangs. They're coming out of prison. They're trying to get back to their families, they're trying to get their kids back. They're trying to be good role models within their community. They're trying to be good role models within the recovery sector. And gosh, they've done well. They've done so well. So yeah, we're coming to the end of this 9-month recovery program.
Incredible. Emily, these participants are part of an organisation called the Grace Foundation.
Yes. Tell
us a little bit about Grace.
Yeah. So the Grace Foundation is probably New Zealand's largest bail house. So they provide accommodation and a safe and supportive environment for people who are coming out of prison or they're waiting for sentencing. And there's probably about 770 people in this community. It's 70% Māori and 25% Pasifika. And so they're very whānau-centric. They are very focused on community healing. And so a program like Stand works really well for them. And what they've done is given Stand all the leadership. And so we've had this leadership-focused group so that all of the tools, all the skills, and all the healing that they have gotten out of this 9 months, they then take it back to their departments at Grace, and then they also take it back into the wider community, which is all over Auckland. So it is an absolute honour to be partnered with such an organisation like Grace Foundation.
It sounds incredible. It is incredible. I've had the privilege of sitting in one of the classes that you took, seeing it in action. The wonderful thing for us at Windsor Park is that I guess we've been praying, we've heard of this, and now we get to experience a little bit of this through graduation of these 30 participants. The graduation ceremony is being held at our Mairangi Bay campus auditorium on May the 19th during our 10:45 a.m. service. What would we expect at that service?
Oh, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be so special. And so we're going to have the Grace family come to Windsor, and we're going to host it for them. And so there's probably a couple of hundred of them coming with all their families, all the leadership. And the Grace Foundation is in the regionals for Kapahaka, and so they're going to present their final item that they've done at Kapahaka. And so we're going to see that here at Windsor, which will be amazing. We're also going to have 25 graduates, and so we've got certificates, we've got presents, we've got lots of hugs, lots of photos, and just a really huge celebration for the hard work that they have done. It's going to be amazing.
I cannot wait for that. It's going to be incredible to see. This is the outworking of stuff that we have heard about, we've prayed about, that we've supported in a range of ways, and the effects in the lives of these people is going to make eternal differences that I guess we'll never kind of understand. What other programs have you been developing as part of Stand over the last little while?
Yeah, sure. So as you can imagine, there's this well of need with this demographic that has, been brought into this world with a lot of adversity. And so some of the programs that I have written is for those specific types of needs. So one of them that we saw was for couples. There are couples who have experienced addiction and trauma who now want to restore their relationship and be positive role models to their children. And so we've done Stand for Couples. And so that was a series of workshops that began last year. We currently do monthly workshops, and we get guest speakers in that are experts in their fields in terms of relationships. And one of those was an expert in sexual violence, as well as the majority of participants have experienced that. And so we do the workshops, and then we also do intensive couples therapy for each individual couple who attend those workshops. So that's been amazing. That's been really cool. And then the other one is an AOD program. So it is
AOD stands for?
AOD stands for alcohol and other drugs. And so that's a fairly recent one. And that is a 6-week intensive. So there's lots of people that come in and out of Grace. That's very fluid. And so they're really needing this intensive, support around them in terms of understanding addiction and understanding trauma. So that's just begun, and that's going to be a bit of a prerequisite to then head into Stand for Recovery. And then obviously the last one, which was the beginning of Stand, was Stand for the Loved Ones. And so we did that at the beginning of last year, and that was for the families who have been impacted by trauma and addiction. So yeah, there's a lot of things happening.
There is a lot of things happening. It's super exciting to hear a little bit about the journey. In what ways can people that might be listening support, help, pray? We know that it's a challenging area of ministry, but we also know that God is doing incredible things beyond our understanding. What ways could people continue to support and be involved with Stand?
Yeah, 100%. So, in so many ways. I mean, if you are in a prayer group, if you are a prayer warrior, you know, you have the gift of intercessory prayer, all prayers are welcome. It's frontline kind of spiritual warfare when you're dealing with people's trauma and helping them go on a healing journey. So, yeah, definitely a lot of prayer is always welcome. The other thing is for graduation, we are gifting everybody a study Bible. Where the purpose of that is so that they understand the Bible more and the Bible comes alive to them more, which is a part of their recovery journey. They find Jesus in their pain, they find Jesus in their recovery. And so we need funding for graduations, for the Bibles, we're doing a whole lot of food, we've got certificates, we're getting T-shirts. We're really celebrating, you know, people being healed and doing the work to be healed and then to go and, you know, become disciples of their communities and disciple others. So that's another way. And ongoing funding. You know, it's hard work. I want to raise up many people to help facilitate these programs, and I would like to pay them, you know. And so, you know, any funding that could be received to help pay other people who will be doing the exact same work that I do, it just helps the masses. Yeah.
So good. Emily, if you could, you've dreamed of this, you've developed it, it's a God-given gift for you to have the insight into that. If you could dream 5 years' time, what would that dream look like? As much as in your worldly dreaming, you could imagine knowing that God will probably amplify that, what would you dream that stand would be in 5 years?
I mean, it would be amazing to have raised up enough facilitators that these programs weren't just for Grace Foundation. You know, these programs are for partnering with local organisations that are doing great work in the community. You know, and also partnering with other churches. You know, who have a lot of ministry outreach as well, and people coming to them for help. So, I mean, the stand programs are for you know, hurting people, you know, and everywhere in New Zealand there are hurting people, and so to be able to go and provide this content, these programs, how you facilitate it, how you help hurting people, how you help the broken as a church or as an organisation, you know, I would love to be doing that, I guess, widespread, you know, to be able to reach into every single corner of New Zealand. Yeah.
I really love that vision. It's obviously very much in line with what we're about as a church community, wanting to see people encounter Jesus in a myriad of different ways. And we have loved being part of the journey so far, and we would love to continue to be part of the journey to the future. Thanks for sharing your heart with us. Thanks for the great work that you have done and are doing. We super look forward to May the 19th at 10:45 here at Mairangi Bay. It's going to be something special. If you normally come to our 9 a.m. service, you can probably come to 10:45. And if you're normally at our 10:45 service, it'll be different. Let the stand participants and their whānau have the best seats. They're our guests, and we look forward to hosting them. Thank you, Emily. God bless you.
Awesome. Bless you, Grant. Bless you.
Well, I just found that a really powerful interview, and I really love what Emily's about and the difference that she's making in lives, and particularly as we seek to grow this ministry, empower others, raise up other leaders, be praying for that, contribute to it. As Emily said that you can contribute to it, that would be amazing, and we just believe that God's going to do some really powerful stuff through that. What I really love about what's happening on May the 19th here is that afterwards we're going to have a feast, and you know, I love feasts. I often say, get people together, good things happen. And normally that's over food, right? We love getting together in cafes and having celebrations and feasts. And I guess we do that in a range of different ways, maybe in our families or in our life groups or whatever it might be. And so I got a little bit of a question for you. What is your favorite feast? Is it like Christmas? Is it like some other event that you have every year? Is it a celebration after a graduation or something like that? maybe just think about this for a few minutes. What are our favorite gatherings, our favorite feasts? And if you want to interact with our online host today, we would see some diversity in what the favorite feasts are. So let's spend a moment thinking about that or sharing about that with one another. I guess for me, I would say one of my favourite feasts is not really around a celebration per se, it's just when all our kids and our grandkids come around to our house, and we try to do that about once every fortnight, and we'll just get takeaways, or sometimes we'll have a meal together. I just love that gathering, I love the activity, I love the action of that. But invite me to your feast and I'll come, because I love that. It's very biblical, sitting around eating with one another. It's a good thing. Well, we're going to head into a time of worship where we allow God to open up our hearts through song. You might want to sing, you might want to hum, you might just want to listen to what our team brings to you today. But through music, we touch the heart of God. And so let's listen to what He might be saying to us. And then after that, we're going to enter into a time of hearing some stories, some more stories of what God has been doing in people's lives.
The God who evermore will be. He opened the prison doors, He parted the raging sea. My God, He holds a victory. There's joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in the house of the Lord today. And we won't be quiet. We shout out your praise. Surely in this place, and we won't be quiet. We shout out your praise, oh Lord. We shout out your praise. We sing to the God who heals. We sing to the God who saves. We sing to the God who always makes a way. 'Cause He hung upon that cross, then He rose up from that grave. My God, to rolling storms away. Yeah, there's joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in the house of the Lord today. And we won't be quiet. We shout out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in this place, and we won't be quiet. We shout out your praise. out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in this place, and we won't be quiet. Shout out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in the house of the Lord today, and we won't be quiet. We shout out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in this place, and we won't be quiet. We shout out your praise, oh Lord. We shout out your praise. We shout out your praise, oh Lord. We shout out your praise, yeah. We shout out your praise. 1,000 generations falling down in worship to sing the song of ages to the Lamb. All who've gone before us and all who will believe will sing the song of ages to the Lamb. Your name is the highest, your name is the greatest, your name stands above them all. All thrones and dominions, all powers and positions, your name stands above them all. And the angels cry, holy, all creation cries, holy, you are lifted high, holy, holy forever. If you've been forgiven and if you've been redeemed, sing the song forever to the Lamb. If you walk in freedom and if you bear his name, sing the song forever to the Lamb. Oh, we'll sing the song forever and amen. And the angels cry, holy, all creation cries, holy, you are lifted high, holy, holy forever. Hear your people sing, holy, to the King of Kings, holy, you will always be, holy, holy forever. Your name is the highest, your name is the greatest, your name stands above them all. All thrones and dominions, all powers and positions, your name stands above them all. Your name is the highest, your name is the greatest, your name stands above them all. All thrones and dominions, all powers and positions, your name stands above them all. And the angels cry, holy,
Oh, thanks for joining us in those beautiful songs. Well, after 4 years of absence due to the global pandemic, this year saw the return of Windsor Park exposure trips, something we had been doing for many years prior to the pandemic. The purpose of exposure trips is exactly as it sounds, to expose people to a different culture in a different country and help them see the world through a new lens while they grow their worldview of where God is at work. These trips plant seeds in people's lives and help participants to grow spiritually, particularly as they come back to life as they know it. In more recent history, we've taken exposure trip participants to Los Angeles to serve alongside the Dream Centre, to India to serve alongside Freeset, which is now Joya, and to Vanuatu to work alongside local communities in that country. A number of years ago, I had the idea of developing a closer relationship with communities as part of child sponsorship through Tear Fund and their global partner Compassion. To cut a longer story short, about 60 people from our community here at Windsor Park now sponsor children in a select group of compassion projects in Cebu City in the Philippines. Last month, I was privileged to be part of a team who participated in our first exposure trip to Cebu. All the participants of the trip are sponsors, and everyone, including me, had the opportunity to meet the children that we sponsor. It was a powerful experience that I know the participants are still thinking a lot about. I put it like this. When we arrived in Cebu, we checked into our hotel that we were staying at, and it's hot in Cebu at this time of the year, about 35 degrees. And so the hotel had the curtains drawn so the heat didn't boil us alive before the air conditioning kicked in. When we got to our rooms, we naturally opened the curtains to see the view. It was beautiful from a distance. But it was also obvious very quickly that around our hotel were significant pockets of poverty, reflected in primitive housing and cramped conditions that we looked right down on. We would never have seen it if we hadn't opened the curtains. This is like our life. We can go around with our eyes closed if we want to. We can ignore some of the big challenges of our world, and plenty of people do, particularly in the West. But when you open your eyes, when you pull back the curtains, and when you take a good hard look, you can't unsee what you've seen. This is the purpose of exposure trips, that participants would have their eyes opened to situations very different from the society in which we live, and that because they can't unsee what they've seen, this would continue to shape the way they view the world and what their response might be as followers of Jesus, to be part of the ongoing Missio Dei, the mission of God in our world. How does what we see affect the way that we live? So today we're going to hear from 5 of the participants of this exposure trip, who I asked to share some thoughts about what they experienced and what it means for them. They will tell their stories. We're going to hear from Bert, Emma, Hannah, Meg, and Jan. By the way, I gave them 3 minutes each, so it's not going to go on forever. Let's listen to their stories now.
Hi, my name is Bert Hull. I went to the Philippines a couple of days before the Tear Fund part of the trip began. I stayed at an Airbnb in IT Park, an area that looked and felt relatively modern compared to where we would be heading with Tear Fund. This helped me to somewhat become acclimatized to the environment. It's noisy and hot, 30 degrees plus, before the official part of the trip began. This was my first trip to a non-Western country, so there was a lot to take in. Just look at the power lines. One thing I found particularly difficult, but also meaningful, was visiting the homes of those affected by poverty. The homes we visited were of people that go to the churches and have children who are part of the Compassion program. In this photo, you can see one of the homes we visited. This mother lives in this small single-roomed shack with her 4 children, one of which is a teenager who was quite cramped in the space. The room was so small that we were not able to stand up straight. At night, they put a thin mattress on the floor and they all sleep on that. They did have some electricity, which powered a small electric fan on the ceiling that we had to be careful not to get hit by. The mother recently found employment and has completed her first month of training. While training, she does not get paid other than a small travel allowance. However, once training is done, she is guaranteed a job at the place she is training with. The pay isn't very much, maybe equivalent of 25 New Zealand dollars per day. Other homes we visited had similar stories. One had no income at all, and the parents are having to forego food in favour of their children. When thinking about the home visits we did, I think about how positive and friendly they are, even though their circumstances are challenging. What are our attitudes when we are in challenging situations? I realise how deeply dependent they are on God for everything, and then think about how we live. Are we depending on God for our needs? I think about living in a small single room with no privacy and no running water, etc. How that compares to our life here in New Zealand and the many luxuries that we have. At the hotel we are staying, I sit down for dinner and I wonder how it is that we have this food in front of us when earlier we were in a house where they barely had the basic necessities of life. One of the highlights of this trip was meeting Cassandra, our sponsored child, and her mother. Initially at the aquarium, where we went with all the sponsors' children, and then again the next day at the church that they go to, which is where this photo was taken. We were able to take some gifts for our sponsored child and their families. Here Cassandra is holding a bag that my wife Christine has crocheted for her. Being able to chat with Cassandra and her mother about their lives and learn more about them was a real privilege. I learnt simple things like purple is her favourite colour, same as Christine. Her father's line of work is a motorbike driver where he takes passengers where they need to go, kind of like Uber but with a motorbike. Cassandra likes to study. Maths is her favourite subject. While we were at the aquarium, she wanted to use her mother's phone to look at her lessons for the day. She is one of the top 2 students of her class. Having met Cassandra and her mother, I can now write more meaningful letters and hope that the relationship can continue to be built through the letter writing. I'm so glad that I went on this trip, and I hope it will continue to shape my worldview and my life in the years to come. I'm still very much processing what I have seen and learnt on this trip. There are many questions, some which I don't think will get answers in this lifetime. I'm reminded to be thankful for what we have and the circumstances that we live in. I wrestle how to be a good steward of the resources that we have been given. I remember that God is sovereign. If you currently sponsor a child via Tier Fund, I would like to encourage you that child sponsorship really makes a difference, and that your letters are very encouraging to the sponsored kids and their families. If you're thinking about sponsoring, I would like to encourage you to do so. The little that we give makes a very big difference in the lives of those who are sponsored.
Kia ora, I'm Emma, and it was my absolute privilege to visit the Philippines last month. It was such a rich experience, and I came away challenged by the poverty, amazed by God's transformation there, and inspired with hope. As soon as I arrived in Cebu City, I was struck by the poverty. Makeshift houses lined many of the streets, but even more shocking was the lack of distance between the wealthy areas and the slums. This photo here was taken from my room on my last night. I stayed in 3 different hotels, and in each one I could look over the balcony or open my window and see the slums right below. The first time I looked out and saw this, it took my breath away. In New Zealand, the rich and the poor don't usually live right next to each other, or if they do, I guess the poverty is often hidden. But here it was so blatant. The contrast was something I was forced to wrestle with the whole time. How could I face visiting homes of parents who were going hungry to feed their children and then drive 10 minutes back down the road to have my buffet dinner? It was hugely challenging, and I'm still wrestling with what this means for me and how God might be calling me to use the resources He's given me. I was also blown away by the transformation in the lives of some of the people we met. Many of the staff at the projects were once sponsored children themselves and have now come back to work as teachers or child development workers. Some of them shared their testimonies with us, which was really inspiring. Many of them grew up in severe poverty without much hope, yet through the sponsorship program, they've graduated college, work in good jobs, and more than that, they've discovered the hope of Jesus. Despite the pain of their past, their joy was so obvious. We only spent a few hours with each of them, but you could see their light just radiating out. Even though they could afford not to, many of them still intentionally chose to live in the slums where they grew up. Their actual living testimonies to those around them of the power of Jesus and the possibility of breaking the cycle of poverty, and it was just so inspiring. This final photo is one of the families we visited on our home visits, and their life sounded pretty difficult. The grandmother was blind, and the father worked as a tricycle driver until midnight every day, a poor-paying and insanely tough job in the 35-degree heat. Their daughter wasn't sponsored yet, and she may have just been shy, but I couldn't help noticing the difference between her muted kind of persona and the vibrancy of the sponsored children we'd just been playing with at the church. But despite how difficult it was to hear of their hardships, I felt a bit hopeful too, because already they'd overcome so much. The father used to be involved in drugs, but now they were super involved in their church. And even though the daughter wasn't being sponsored, they were still receiving some support from the project. After hearing of the transformation of the alumni, I know that through the possibility of sponsorship, there's a very real hope for God to change their situation. So I guess one of the many things I came away with from my time in the Philippines is that poverty is super complex, and there are many things I don't understand, but with Jesus there's hope. I saw firsthand the transformation He is bringing through the sponsorship program in the lives of these people, and just a small sacrifice from me can change someone's life forever.
Hey everyone, my name is Hannah and I'm a law and health sciences student. I went on the Philippines trip and it was honestly such a formational and encouraging experience. It was an honour to go on it. There were so many highlights and learning opportunities, but something that I've been thinking a lot about since coming back from the trip is the power of hope and those who speak hope into your life. This is because we were told that most of the children living in the slums in poverty are told that this will be their life for the rest of their lives, that there is no way to get out of their situation and there is no hope, and that the daily struggle of poverty in the slums will be their future. It's really incomprehensible that these beautiful, joy-filled children have been taught to believe this from such a young age, often by those they love and trust. But in response, we were told that Compassion and their workers, who are often alumni of the sponsorship program, make a real effort to address this by regularly teaching the children that there is a hope for the future. A main reason why alumni of the sponsorship program come back as workers is to be a living example to the children that there is a way to escape poverty. This hope is also provided to the children through the financial support and letters from their sponsors. It's really impactful to have another person standing beside them and supporting them by investing in their lives and showing interest in them, even if it is from the other side of the world. And I saw this because the children would speak with such fondness of their sponsor families. And obviously, this hope is also introduced to the children through teaching about Jesus and His love and His good plan and purpose for them, which we could see they really held tightly onto through their energetic worship and positive outlook on life. The next photo is of Emma and I with Raj, who we've been sponsoring for coming up 2 years. He's 19 years old and he's working full-time designing websites as well as going to Bible study courses in the evening to train to be a pastor. Emma and I get really long letters from Raj once every couple of months, so I thought that we already knew quite a lot about him and about his life before meeting him, But chatting with him, having lunch with him, and just spending time with him gave us a different level of connection with him. I now know what his weeks look like and how exactly all of his different activities fit in with each other. It felt really surreal asking him for his prayer requests and being able to pray for him right there and then. It was also super cool finding another common interest between him, Emma, and I of youth leading, and he was telling us about the impact of church camps which he goes to, which we were also able to relate to as well. There are so many other stories to tell and photos to show. Thank you all for your support, whether that be through taking part in the quiz night fundraiser or praying throughout the trip.
Hey everyone, my name's Meg, and I had the privilege of being able to go on the trip to the Philippines. It was such an eye-opening, confronting and inspiring experience. On the first night, I remember walking through the streets of Cebu, with Grant confidently leading the way through narrow alleyways where we walked past people's homes and got a glimpse into their lives. The sights and smells were all so foreign to anything I had experienced before, and it definitely felt like a culture shock. And it was on this walk that I first noticed how friendly Filipinos really are, as they called out, "Welcome to the Philippines" and "Welcome to Cebu." Then we visited the first Child Development Centre, and wow, I was blown away by the welcome we received. As soon as we stepped inside, we were greeted with warmth and smiles. It was amazing walking into a room full of children and seeing the joy radiating out of them. It was humbling hearing them worshipping and singing to Jesus. No holding back, just shouting out his praise. I loved being able to spend time with the children, learning their names and a bit about them. They were all so excited to see us, and one of the staff members told us that for months the kids had been practicing their English every Saturday for us coming. At one of the centres, we were able to hang out with the kids after the session had finished, skipping and playing games like tag and hide and seek. It was so fun being able to make connections and laugh with the children. One of my highlights definitely has to be meeting my sponsor child Thea. I remember the welcoming session had just finished and she ran straight over and gave me a big hug. It was such an amazing experience. I write letters back and forth with her mum, but actually being there and being able to talk with Thea's mother, Sal, I heard so much more about their lives. Their family have taken in 2 boys who didn't have a home or anywhere to go, and they also look after their grandparents who share their small home with them. Her husband sells fish at a stall and supports the whole family doing this. Thea starts school in July, and her mum is so grateful that all her school supplies will be covered through the sponsorship program. As she says, life is hard, especially with not being able to afford enough food for the whole family. After meeting them and spending the day with them at the aquarium, I really feel my relationship and connection with them is so much stronger, and going forward, writing letters will be so much more meaningful. One of the gifts that I gave Thea was a book called Jesus Loves the Little Children. And it's so true. Being in the Philippines reminded me about God's love and heart for children, and it was so special to experience this through the children we met and the centres we visited.
Hi, my name is Jan, and I'm so grateful that I could be part of the team that went on the Philippines exposure trip. What a privilege it was to spend a week with the amazing people on the team, being able to share, process and reflect on what we were experiencing. We kept asking God to open our hearts and minds to what He was doing in the lives of the people we met, and how He wanted to shape our hearts to see the world through His eyes. I had expected to be confronted and challenged by the poverty, and I was. But what I hadn't expected was to be so blessed by the Filipino people, and to experience so much joy, laughter and hope, and to be so inspired by hearing the stories of the people we met and their incredible resilience. Time and time again, we heard people tell of God's presence in their lives, His provision, His goodness amongst incredible hardships. In one home visit, we met a young family who were facing many struggles. They had lost their previous home in a typhoon and were living in a tiny makeshift home in a squatter area. The father is currently out of work and is having to collect crabs to provide food for his family. And the parents are having to miss meals so that their 2 little girls can eat. As Barbara, the mother, was sharing about her life, she was crying. A few of us were sharing in her tears. Then the translator told us that she wants us to know her tears are actually tears of joy, as she is trusting the Lord to provide and is thankful for all He has done. Something that was very special was an evening we had with some young adults who had previously been sponsor children. They radiated an inner joy and hope. As they shared their stories with us, they told of God being their source of strength and hope. One story that really touched me was MJ's. Her family lived in the slums and were so poor that they were given gum to chew for breakfast, and then they would stick it on the ceiling to reuse the next day. As a child, she was used by the drug dealers to carry drugs. She then became part of the sponsorship program, and her main reason for going to the Child Development Centre each week was for the snacks as she was hungry. Later on, she went because she was spiritually hungry, and she came to know Jesus here. She ended by saying, "I am Mary Jane. I once was lost, but now am found." With the help of the sponsorship program, she was able to go to college and now is working as a medical receptionist. And like many of the other alumni, she wants to give back and volunteers at the centre. The alumni are catalysts of change and are inspiring the children to dream big and demonstrating that they can improve their lives. The local churches we visited are sharing God's love and helping the children by caring for their holistic needs. Here the children are loved, known, accepted, and protected. Being a sponsor child gives them assurance of being part of God's family, and this gives them hope. We were given a prayer for our journey, and there was one part of the prayer that particularly stuck with me during the trip. Position our hearts, Lord, when our eyes are drawn to the ground and we are not present to our surroundings. Straighten our spines and open our eyes to see the world as you do. Now, even after this trip, this is still my prayer, for me to see the world through God's eyes.
Well, thanks you guys for sharing a little bit of your story and some pictures. I think you've got a great summary of what this exposure trip achieved. Child sponsorship in communities that exist well below the poverty line makes a difference. Since meeting one of our sponsor kids in India many years ago, I've become a bigger fan of child sponsorship. I've had many questions, and even this last trip has provided solid answers to the effectiveness of this kind of support, particularly through Tear Fund and Compassion, where the projects are delivered through local churches in their communities. And so also helping people find the real treasure that lasts for eternity, that of Jesus Christ. And you know, this lines up with everything that we are about here at Windsor Park. Our vision statement reflects this: helping build stronger communities by putting our faith into action. Well, there are 3 things that I'd like to encourage you to think about. You could do all 3, you could do 2, you could just do one of them, or you could do none. It's entirely up to you, but 3 things coming out of this exposure trip that I think are really valuable things. Firstly, you could become a sponsor in one of these projects in Cebu, in the Philippines. I'd love it if we got to 100 kids in these projects, which means that we are increasingly doing something together that we can build on as we seek what a closer relationship in these areas might mean for the future. We're still working that out. It's $56 a month to sponsor a child, and if you can't afford that, maybe partner up with others. We have several groups who are sponsoring together. One of our Year 10 groups, just kind of 14, 15-year-olds are sponsoring together. It makes it possible. If If you'd like to sponsor, just email me, grant.harris@windsorpark.org.nz. I can link you into how we can make this happen. Secondly, you might want to consider coming on an exposure trip. After every trip, I always spend a lot of time thinking about what has happened, debriefing with participants to see if it's helped them grow, and largely, not always because you can keep your eyes closed, there is significant fruit in the lives of participants. As we're getting back into gear, we're looking at our further exposure trips. You might want to start saving up for one of those. Or thirdly, pray that God will open our eyes continually. As the Apostle Paul said to the church in Ephesus when he was thanking God for their lives, Ephesians 1:18, I pray that the eyes of your heart may be enlightened in order that you may know the hope to which he has called you, the riches of his glorious inheritance in his holy people, and his incomparably great power for us who believe. Might our eyes be opened to what God is doing in our world and how we participate with him. You might want to do 1, 2, or 3 of those things. As we close, we're going to sing or listen to an older song, one that will be familiar to many of you and one that reflects that passage that I have just read out of Ephesians. It's the song, Open the Eyes of My Heart, Lord. And I guess that's really what my greatest hope is for all of us, that we will continue to grow our view of what God is doing in the world, not just overseas, but in our local communities. Our exposure trips are always geared towards thinking about what does it mean for the way that we live here and now. So wherever you are, how are you allowing God to open your eyes to what is around you? And thinking about what our response is to those situations. That we might use our resources, however big or small they are, to make a difference to God's purposes and to grow his kingdom in our world. This is a beautiful song. This is a version of it that is kind of appeals to all tastes. It's a bit of a modern song in some ways, but it has an orchestra around it. So it's a beautiful version. But might these words speak into our hearts today, not just today, but tomorrow, as we allow God to open our hearts because we want to see him. We want to see his purposes come into our world. Thanks for joining us at Windsor Park Online. It's been our privilege to tell stories today, to be challenged about what God is doing in our world. Let's listen to the song, and God bless. Have a great week.
Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. To see you high and lifted up, shining in the light of your glory. Pour out your power and love as we sing holy, holy, holy. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. You are